4 temas tratados y sus perspectivas de futuro. Y son es la 1:15 y queremos acabar ahora hasta las 13:15. Entonces propongo como mecánica para esta última parte del seminario lo siguiente. Supuestamente yo debo hacer proponer algo y después los panelistas sugerir o adherir a una otra propuesta y después ver para el futuro. Yo voy a usar 4 minutos para decir lo que creo que podría ser como recomendaciones generales. Y cada uno de los panelistas le voy a pedir que haga en función de su expertise, en función de su experiencia y especialidad, que nos propongan cada uno una sugerencia o una propuesta de conclusión, así como la perspectiva que tiene esa conclusión respecto a futuro. ¿Les parece? ¿Aceptado? Bueno, voy a presumir que sí. Entonces, después de haber escuchado todas las charlas, escuchado las discusiones, haber observado los problemas internos de España y más aún los problemas internos del sur de España y más concretamente todas las áreas donde está involucrada la empresa que nos ha auspiciado, en este caso la Mancomunidad de Municipios de la Costa del Sol, propongo como primera conclusión es que en España, se puede ampliar, pero no hemos tenido tanta opinión de gente de fuera de España, que uno de los primeros problemas que se tiene en España es la ausencia de una autoridad de aguas al más alto nivel, con el fin de evitar todos los problemas que ustedes han identificado de diferente índole, sea administrativo, económico, de autoridad, etc. Esa sería mi primera propuesta. Es que efectivamente en España hay una crisis de la gestión del agua, que esta crisis tiene que ver con una falta de autoridad al más alto nivel y que esta se hecho. La primera propuesta. La segunda propuesta sería que se ha identificado aquí que gran parte de las infraestructuras vinculadas a la dotación de agua potable, así como las redes de saneamiento y las plantas de tratamiento, están en una situación delicada respecto a su mantenimiento y que se requiere una renovación de estas infraestructuras, porque en algunos casos se encuentran en situaciones relativamente críticas. Esa es la segunda propuesta. O sea, cómo mejorar y aumentar su periodo de vida de las infraestructuras actuales. Una tercera situación sería el tema de las tarifas. Básicamente todo el mundo ha dicho que la tarifa no refleja en muchos casos ni los gastos de operación. Y no sabemos que las tarifas son arreglos políticos, que no refleja absolutamente nada. La tarifa es un arreglo político. No representa la inversión, no representa la operación, no representa el mantenimiento. Entonces, otro tema sería el tema de las tarifas. ¿Qué hacer con el tema tarifas? ¿Cómo encarar el tema tarifas? Y una cuarta, que corresponde a la penúltima sesión, es que el agua efectivamente es fuente de cooperación. O sea, hasta el momento no han podido decirnos que es fuente de conflicto. No se ha demostrado que es fuente de conflicto. Entonces, reconocer que el agua es fuente de cooperación. Esas serían mis 4 propuestas de conclusiones generales. Ahora paso la palabra a los colegas del panel para que ellos propongan o modifiquen o sugieran algunas otras conclusiones respecto a los temas de su especialidad.
So you asked me very short and direct and just talk in bullets. And I will totally concentrate on my position here as being the representative of the private operators. And my conclusion of this day, yesterday and also today, is that yes, there is an increasing demand of the establishment of public-private partnerships. I think that is the outcome of yesterday's session on that topic, but they have to fully rely on the regulatory demands, and they must not privatize the source, water. This is not what the operators really want. They want to increase efficiency and to help to overcome the difficulties of the lacking sources for the necessary improvements of the water infrastructure systems. And I will be very glad to evidence and to discuss successes which we will have made.
En cuanto al agua como una fuente de conflictos o cooperación, efectivamente en el pasado y en el presente esa ha sido la herramienta, ha sido una herramienta válida, y únicamente en cuanto a la perspectiva de futuro, como hemos visto antes, los retos que hay son muy grandes en cuanto a ese incremento exponencial de la población, ese incremento de las necesidades de los desarrollos económicos y toda la problemática surgida con el terrorismo internacional, con el extremismo y los posibles intereses sobre actuar sobre infraestructuras relacionadas con el agua. ¿Qué va a implicar esto? Como hemos dicho, hay una ausencia de legislación internacional que se deben hacer esfuerzos para implementar los acuerdos de Naciones Unidas, en el cual se reconoce el agua como un derecho, tanto el agua como el saneamiento, como un derecho al mismo nivel que el resto. Y después los avances tecnológicos deben ir orientados no hacia el consumo humano en ciudades y demás, sino para conseguir, debido al cambio climático, a conseguir una mayor eficiencia del agua que se necesita en agricultura y en ganadería para, ante este aumento exponencial de la demanda, conseguir una eficiencia necesaria para todos estos retos del siglo XXI. Nada más.
Gracias, Francisco. Entonces, repitiendo, él reconoce que el agua es fuente de cooperación, y para garantizar que el agua es una fuente de cooperación es fundamental que se implemente, que se ponga en marcha la vigencia de un derecho vinculante, que es el acceso al agua potable y al saneamiento, así como toda otra medida que garantice lograr esta paz buscada a través del agua. Entonces, la segunda propuesta que hace uno de los panelistas. Entonces, ahora pedimos a David que por favor haga su sugerencia en la misma dirección. Por favor, David.
Firstly, although Carlos wanted us to be succinct, I don't think he will mind me thanking you guys for inviting me to speak yesterday and today. It's given me an insight into the beautiful region and given me reasons to come back. However, I might feel a little guilty coming back here, knowing how much stress you're under from a water perspective, so maybe I'll bring my own next time. One of the things that Carlos probably won't thank me for is the fact that if I may have 2 points, but I'll try and make them very, very brief. There's been a lot of talk about public versus private sort of infrastructure and organisations. Irrespective of that, I think there's a lot that unite, some of the challenges that unite both entities. So I think one of the things that's really quite important is that we understand and operate and maintain our assets in a very efficient way. And I think that there is good scope to do some sort of learning and some swapping of experience on that front. We have some fairly unique sort of desalination configurations, some MBRs, membrane bioreactors, and we found that there are challenges in terms of, we use the phrase mothballing or sort of putting them on ice when we don't need them, and then being able to ramp them up quickly. I think some of the challenges that you're confronted with because of the seasonal flux of population are possibly not dissimilar. So I think that would be worth sort of swapping some experiences on. The other thing that we found was that we've had to acknowledge the fact that there is a difference in our operator skill set to operate different types of plant. So we have moved from old technology that we've used for a long period of time into more sort of chemical engineering type technology, and with that there are some developments. The second thing I was going to say was there's been a lot of talk around just the general water resource as an entity in terms of volume. But I think one of the things that hasn't been touched on a lot is the quality aspects of that. It's been mentioned, but only briefly. And I think the challenge that we've got is as we get maybe less rain or less water in some cases, but in other cases more rain and we don't want it and flooding, we are going to see a deterioration sometimes of the raw water sources that we've got, whether it's algae or whether it's sort of solids and turbidity and nutrients. And I think understanding how we use our plants efficiently to get the most out of them with challenges is going to be quite key. We talked about on the quality front at the far end on the product side, very briefly about pharmaceuticals and endocrine disruptors. I think that might be worth something that again we could bring back and explore next time. There's a lot of literature around that. For what it's worth, the conversation, the topic came up during the golf course presentation yesterday. I don't foresee you having a problem with that. If you've got reused water going onto golf courses, I would have thought that the organics that would be in that reused water would bind to substrate in the aquifer and wouldn't be an issue. So I think those would be my two things. I've made some contacts finally around schools and public perception and how we educate people going forward. So that would be. I haven't had a chance to meet all of you, so I'm going to leave some cards on the table. So if anybody wants to make contact with me after the event, I look forward to doing that. Thank you very much.
I would like to focus my conclusion on the achievement of implementation of the Urban Wastewater Directive in different ways. First of all, there is a need to comply with the compliance objective of different water directives, and first of all, there are still countries that are still not compliant with the Urban Wastewater Directive, but more and more also we have to look at the agglomeration that have still an impact on the water bodies and that have to take additional measures to comply with the Water Framework Directive objectives. And inside the Urban Wastewater Directive, there is really a need to take better into account the rain events in order to reduce as much as possible the overflows during these events. Secondly, because we have lots of infrastructure in place, there is a need to ensure sufficient operation and maintenance of all this infrastructure, and inside this operation and maintenance we have to take more and more into account the energy consumption. The third aspect is, and we spoke about that yesterday, is to ensure a minimum rate of renewal of infrastructure, and especially the networks, because we know that in most of the countries there is a rate of renewal below 1%, and this rate of renewal is not sustainable. And we have also to highlight that increasing this rate of renewal is also a very good opportunity to create activities and jobs. We have also to increase and to take into account more preventive measures, because as I explained yesterday, this is what is requested under the accession, the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, and among the preventive measures I presented yesterday the natural water retention measures, but also there is a need also to avoid the introduction in the creating system of priority substances, and more, and as regards the target of the marine strategy from our directive, we have to see how to avoid introduction of litter or microplastic in collecting systems. As regards the renewable of infrastructures, there is also a need to have a better urbanization integration, and this is a solution to reduce the cost of the infrastructure, is to concentrate the urbanization and to put the new settlements where there is existing networks in place, because this is the way to reduce investment costs. This is also the way to utilize the operation and maintenance costs, and of course it is the way to preserve natural and agricultural soils. As regards the aspect we mentioned yesterday about wastewater reuse, of course we are working on improving the reuse of treated wastewater and facilitating this type of reuse, because it's also a multi-benefits policy. And what also I presented yesterday is that there is really a need to improve data management, so that's what we have done at European level to enlarge the use of the information we have from 100 states, and this is the website we displayed last week. But there is also a need to improve the data collection system at national level, because this is a bottleneck for some countries, and so it's also important, because if we are able to enlarge the use of information, it's also a way to increase the market as regards to increase the use of this information. And we know also that we need better information about the investments and jobs related to these policies, because this is also a way to sell it better to the political level.
Very much. I actually split my final remarks into two components. The first one are actually of a selfish nature, in terms of sharing with you four key things that I take away from these 2 days with great appreciation. First one being the care that the organization took into bringing a diversity of interesting international experiences into the forum, from the UK, from Egypt, the EU perspective brought to us by Bruno. I would like to applaud and underline that. Second, without demeanor to any other, I was quite positively impressed by the presentation by the president of the Water Utility Association here in Andalusia, because its exposure underlined what I call a very healthy neutrality when it comes to the roles of public versus private enterprise in water service provision. I always like to say it's not P for private, it's not P for public, it should be P for professional. The third thing that I also like to, which is an interesting example that I take back home to Portugal, is the format of initiatives like the one represented by companies like Aquamed as a more agile and professional way of the Spanish state to implement some water infrastructure projects, so that one was also a highlight. And the fourth point is the example provided by Aquasol itself, namely in its model of governance, by bringing together 11 municipalities and achieving a scale that it allows to have professional management, and also the range of technologies that the company itself displays is adequate to its specific circumstances, namely investment in desalination and also reuse. It's also a top concern in Portugal at the moment to continue to promote a greater aggregation of municipalities in similar systems. So I would also recommend to my colleagues in Portugal to come to Malaga, and for two good reasons, Aquasol and Malaga itself. Now, as to the recommendations that I would make, they're basically twofold, and they've already been made. One, there's an underlying topic theme, which I would call governance, institutional framework. Carlos has made a strong case around it, which is something where, personally also I think in Portugal there's been some retrocess, some setback, which is to have the importance of a clear national authority on water. I would really underline that. We also had a poor experience with having water together with agriculture. Agriculture is a user segment. Conceptually, from what I've seen around the world, it has some fragilities on that. The other thing that has been stressed is, and this is, we're seeing this here, we're seeing this in Portugal, we're seeing this in the US, which is every engineer is in this sector thinks he is a Cuban mechanic. I know Cuban mechanics can make cars that are supposed to last 5 years to run for 50 years. But you have engineers all over the world operating assets and maintaining them as if they would last 200 years, 300 years. Now, because this capex, this expenditure, is so easy to postpone on a year-to-year basis, the topic of some regulatory mechanisms that ensure that we're not operating with 0.5% renewal rates on a year-to-year basis, but actually have a degree of asset renewal is a concern, I think, across all OECD economies that have had systems infrastructure in place for several decades now. So in terms of bullet points to put on a t-shirt, I would say governance, regulation, infrastructure, asset management, and at the end of the day, cost recovery tariffs to fuel the whole process. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias. Bueno, yo en mi caso, ya al ser el último, después de un día y medio y de las conclusiones que han hecho mis compañeros, me queda la verdad poco que añadir. Me sumo absolutamente a todo lo que han dicho. Ha sido un placer para mí el formar parte de este magnífico evento. Y bueno, por redundar un poquito más en la idea, simplemente yo me quedaría con colaboración. Colaboración entre todos los agentes que formamos parte de este juego. Hablamos de administraciones, empresas públicas, privadas y los ciudadanos. Yo creo que no hay mejor ejemplo que este que hemos vivido, que hemos podido disfrutar y que personalmente agradezco y felicito a COSOL por esta iniciativa. Y lo que me gustaría es que hubiera más foros, más observatorios en el que podamos entre todos debatir, porque estoy convencido de que es la clave del éxito. Y como una segunda idea, ambición. Igual que comenté el otro día que si se detecta ya que la sociedad tiene una sensibilidad muy alta en cuanto a agua potable, ahorro, me gustaría que todos tuviéramos esa idea, cada uno a nuestro nivel, en nuestra posición, ser capaz de trasladar esa ambición también al mundo de la regeneración del agua. Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias. Entonces, como verán, hay una coincidencia en los temas principales.